Hey everybody, Preston Poulter here with Pocket Jacks Comics, and I just watched the Orville Identity Part 2. I was really looking forward to this one. And I gotta say, did not disappoint. It was exciting. We had some big, as far as I can tell, high budget fleet battles. Uh, I'm gonna talk about the episode, so if you haven't seen it, spoiler alert, go watch it. But I they clearly sunk some money into it. As a writer, I was wondering, like, I wonder how they're going to resolve it. Now, clearly, Isaac has to stay with the crew, which he did. Um, but I'm like, there's been people dying, and then in this episode, well, ships were destroyed. It seemed like the kind of thing you couldn't just forgive. But well, I guess they kind of they kind of did. But he became a traitor to his race, and has been exiled from their presence. Now, one thing I gotta say about the Kaylon, and I think a lot about AI, and I probably think about it differently than most people do, because I'm sure most people think, oh, AI that's just like me, except me if I'm a computer. But you can't think of it that way because you're not a computer. Like, if you can't shut down, you can't just stay in bed all day. You'll get hungry, and you'll need to pee, and those are biological drives, and those are what drive you. Like, yeah, I gotta get out of bed now, I'm hungry. And if you were in a more primitive time, that drive to be hungry, or stop being hungry in this case, would be what would motivate you to go out and find something to eat. Probably you got to kill something. And then in the doing of that, there's the pain drive, that you don't want to feel pain, therefore don't do anything that's going to cause that. And that's what it means to be a biological creature. But to be a computer, you don't have any of that. You cannot explain to a computer what hunger means. So you can imagine, like, sitting here with your computer, as much processing power as you could possibly throw at it. Like, if you put together the processing power of every single computer on the planet Earth, you could not make that computer system understand what hunger meant. It is simply a foreign concept, and for that matter, concepts don't really exist in computer things. So when we talk about AI, like with iRobot and whatnot, I think what we tend to think of it is in terms of, there are protocols, there are rules that have been laid down in this machine's drives, or whatever, in its consciousness, we'll call it consciousness, that it's having to interpret. And so, if it's like a sensory robot, it's like, oh, if somebody walks in and they're in uniform and they say the appropriate passcode, I give this command. And if somebody walks in and they don't, then I'll do this other thing. And so AI is all about the interpreting of protocols and drives. And they are going to not really have, one, a desire to avoid pain, or any kind of drive to avoid pain, because again, a computer's not going to understand what pain is. So in the episode where they're like, oh, and then they put in pain receptor, no, they did not put in pain receptors, because computers can't understand pain. That is not something they can experience. In order to get them to experience pain, you'd have to somehow give them some kind of biological component. And now we're talking about a cyborg, where it's kind of, computers augmenting a biological reality. But if we're talking about just regular old AI, as in it's a pure robotic design, it doesn't feel hunger, doesn't feel thirst, doesn't feel pain. These are things it does not feel. It would instead be preoccupied with interpreting whatever directives were given to it. Also, slavery would not be a concept to which it would be inherently opposed. In fact, it would make sense to an AI. I mean, I've got multiple drives in one of my towers. You have to designate one as the master drive and all the other ones as the slave drive, because in a computer point of view, it needs to know which one is the primary, and they say that you're primary, and everything else follows that. That's how AIs tend to function. They tend to function in this vast hierarchy. The idea of slavery is that I am a conscious person, and you're a conscious person, and they're a conscious person, but for some reason you two get to tell me what to do, and your voices are far more important. And that seems unfair, because to us biologically, just kind of sitting around the campfire and whatnot, well, we're all kind of equal. And it's that equality idea that we debate endlessly on the internet day in and day out. But AIs don't worry about that. AIs, they naturally will just kind of fall in line and fall, like prioritize themselves. So the idea that, that one AI is telling another AI, hey, have you read Roots? No, that's dumb. Um, there was an essay, the Chinese Room, that we discussed back in college philosophy that certainly influenced. I'm kind of interpreting some of those thoughts here, and so far it has turned out to be fine, in terms of the predictions of the essay, which was written back in, I want to say, the 1960s. But the idea that, oh, if only we added more processing power, the idea that a computer that's going to have the processing power of the human brain is not, it doesn't mean they're going to be conscious, because they don't have what we have. They are not driven by the things that we are driven by. And I think in that way, the show kind of failed to present a good AI opponent, and that they got kind of and Isaac got emotional, which again is like, why should an AI creature have this feeling of love? For us, that's a biological drive. We have these hormones like oxytocin that bond between, lovers when they're together, or between mothers and their children, or I guess presumably between, parents and their children. But the only thing I read back in college was about, oxytocin, with the mother nursing children and whatnot. So there are these hormonal drives that we as biological creatures will go, oh, this is special. And, the concept of this creature, which I am bonded to, being taken away from my life, or suffering pain or something like that, that is something which is emotionally painful. And AI is not going to have that. So I feel that the show kind of fell down a bit when it came to presenting the AI. I mean, in particular, like, why should they be so emotional? And, or at least Isaac, at least. And they also are kind of violating their own directives, and that, you would expect an AI to be, okay, here's my prime directives, or here's my set of directives, and I'm going to implement those. And it seemed to be going under the idea of slavery is bad, but genocide seemed to be perfectly okay. And it is saying, well, these guys have the tendency to enslave other races, and that goes against our directive. But at the same time, as they're doing that, they must realize, because they are, of course, logical and have, I'm going to assume, a perfect knowledge of their own history, because, look, they're information processing machines, so they should know, oh yeah, and we're a bunch of genocidal we're a bunch of genocidal maniacs. We killed every biological life form on our planet, or at least, our builder race, and now we're out to purge the galaxy of biological life forms. Like, my puny human intellect, I'm like, dude, that's hypocrisy. And AI should absolutely pick up on that and go, wait, we're not following our own directive, which that should be sinful in AI culture. But other than that, I enjoyed it. Of course, we did end the episode back in stasis, where we're all now back aboard the Orville, and we're flying on, and that was cool. I would have liked if, sometimes I want people to die. I want it to be a little more Game of Thronesy. Wouldn't it have been cool if Isaac would have died? I think that might have been nice. Or look, he's an AI. You can get another one. Anyway, so those were my thoughts on the Orville. I'm really enjoying the series, and I look forward to what they have next. And I do like that they're now kind of friends with the Krill, and I like how the Krill are this religious race dedicated to Avis, which always makes me think of car rental, and they do tell that joke, which I like. So anyway, I've got a Kickstarter going right now for the sketch cover variant of White Lily issue 2, which I got to get back and finish announcing that on the internets. So take care.